Hi everyone, I am Marlene Alphonse, a future cyber law attorney, and today I'm going to be talking to you guys about how hacking works. Throughout this video, I'm also going to be referencing previous breaches such as the Equifax breach, which I did cover in a video. Again, it's going to be either here or here, and we're also going to do the Capital One breach. So just briefly as examples. And by the end of this video, you'll understand how breaches happen step by step from beginning to end and why they keep happening. In specific, why certain systems fail. In fact, according to worthininsurance.com, in 2025, there were approximately 3,200 publicly reported breaches. So that doesn't even include the breaches that may have gone unreported or have yet to be reported. Before we talk about how hackers do their thing, let's talk about the kinds of hackers. So in general, there's three kinds of hackers. The first hacker is a white hat, and a white hat essentially means that you are basically authorized to hack the system. This could be like pen testers or like people who are basically paid to try and break into systems, right? They have the authority to do so. They're doing it for defensive purposes. They're trying to test the system for weaknesses before the attackers can do it. And then you have the gray hats. The gray hats can kind of be like everyday people who aren't specifically hired or authorized to do certain things, but they have the knowledge and the tools to still do it. They aren't necessarily trying to be malicious about it, but they are still gaining unauthorized access, which is still hacking. So they may expose flaws without permission, which puts them in a legal gray area because that isn't legal. Like, for example, there was an incident where a student, I believe, hacked into Google or Microsoft, one of the two, and they actually hired him. So technically he was a gray hat because he didn't do anything bad, and then they turned him into a white hat by actually hiring him. Don't do that, by the way, because I looked it up and Google did say that if anyone else tries to do it, they will not simply try to just hire them, and they will in fact press charges. So don't get in legal trouble. And then of course there is the black hats, and the black hats are the hackers that we're going to be talking about today. They are the unauthorized and malicious hackers. So they typically would do this for financial gain, maybe data theft, or a simple disruption, blah blah blah, right? So this is where most real world breaches come from, like the examples we're going to use today, Equifax and Capital One. In this video, we are going to be focusing on the black hat behavior because understanding how attacks work is the foundation of defending against them. Duh. Okay, so let's talk about red team versus blue team. And if you're into cybersecurity, you're probably going to hear those terms thrown around a lot, red teamer, blue teamer, right? But we're going to kind of do a quick overview of them because we need to focus on how hackers do their thing. Red team is just a part of what hackers do. So, red team simulates attackers, right? Their job is to break in and bypass controls and obviously reveal the weaknesses, because if they're bypassing controls, that is most definitely a weakness. And then you have the blue team, which are the defenders. They are there to detect, respond, and threaten security systems over time. That's where we come in. Whether you're trying to be like a cybersecurity analyst or a cyber law attorney like me, we are on the defenders team, the blue team. But if you want to be like a pen tester, you would be a red team. But the underlying message here is that real security isn't red or blue. It's actually the intersection between both that makes a good hacker. If you know how to red team and you know how to blue team, are you unstoppable? Let's see. Concept number one. Concept number one is reconnaissance. And the grounding question for this part is, how does an attack start before anything is touched? So, reconnaissance. If you're a video gamer and you play like FPS games, you may know reconnaissance as maybe a character who looks around, or maybe a mission where you have to just find something, and that's essentially what reconnaissance is. It's observing and gaining information from observing. For example, a hacker would be observing the system, well, not technically the system per se, they could just be observing anything. For example, you could try to social engineer your way into a building to observe their security, where their security cameras are and stuff like that. And by social engineering, I mean gaining access to a place where you're not supposed to initially have access to. And this could be something simple as like someone's about to go into the building, and you say, oh, I forgot my key, and then they're like, oh, nice, they're like nice to you, and they're like, oh, it's fine, you can just walk in behind me, and you walk in behind them, and you didn't have access to the place in the first place, but they just gave you the access out of the kindness of being empathetic. And that is social engineering. So the good thing is there's nothing really bad that comes from reconnaissance alone or things like social engineering. These are more of initial steps to leading down that path. So for example, you could probably monitor a website traffic on a website is typically basic traffic, so you can see like the kind of people who go in and out of the website. You can just kind of see like what's going on, really just looking for whatever you're trying to find. This could be information from the real world, like maybe you're looking at a job posting, or maybe you're looking at someone logging in on their computer, and you're kind of just behind them looking, for the password or something like that. It could be something on the computer where you're stalking like a website, or you're stalking a business, or you're stalking a person and tracking where they're going. Like, are they visiting this website? Are they doing that? What are they searching up? Stuff like that. That's just reconnaissance, right? It's a little creepy, but it doesn't do any harm. What does start to become a more of a black hat area is when you use the information that you gain from reconnaissance. So, of course, anchoring it back to law, because that's what I am trying to pursue. For example, we can use the Equifax breach, where the vulnerability exploited was public knowledge. So the issue was the failure to patch a known system, right? So all the hacker had to do was just look through the person's system and see, did they patch this thing or not? And if they didn't patch it, that's easy access. They didn't have to brute force their way in. They didn't have to try and gain elevated access. They didn't have to do any of that. They just found that this part wasn't patched, basically like finding a little hole in the wall and just going through the hole because it's there. It's free. I have easy access that way. And that's why it's so crucial to stay up to date, even you as an end user, to make sure you update your software so that hackers don't gain entry because of you. And of course, as lawyers here, we would focus on asset inventory failures, poor patch governance, and of course, compliance without verification. Yeah. According to NIST or NIST, visibility is a prerequisite for security, and most organizations never fully achieve it. Wow, organizations, we need to be doing better. In any case, once a system is understood, the hacker thinks, now, where can I get in? And unlike the easy access that Equifax gave their hackers, if you do have your system up to date and patched up, this is where the hacker is going to have to be a little more intelligent and stealthy, because now they have to find a way in. And this can be through multiple avenues. Concept number 2, initial access. And the core question here is, how does observation turn into entry? So how does reconnaissance turn into a way where I can obtain information where I wasn't supposed to, where I was unauthorized to? Let's see. So of course, the initial access is just the first foothold before the control. You got to get the access before you can do anything. For example, you got to get in the car before you can drive it, unless it's a remote control car, which we don't have those yet. So until then, you got to get in the car before you can drive it. So this is where a system accepts something it shouldn't, right? We call this malware. There are several types of malware, but essentially it is a software that's programmed for malicious intent. So when you think of malware, think of malicious software. Put together, malware. I'm pretty sure that's where the word comes from, right? But yeah, that's just what it is. A software is just a program that does tasks or that has an algorithm. And an algorithm is just a list of steps to complete a task. But what makes a software malware is that this program intentionally is trying to do something bad, like it's trying to gain unauthorized access, or it's trying to get information that it's not supposed to have, like somebody's credit card number or social security card number. Hackers can go crazy if they are skilled enough and their programs are sophisticated enough, because actually, for example, viruses, there's a whole bank of viruses, known viruses already, that organizations can use to essentially, if you had to compare it to the body, it's like an immune system who has known all of these different kinds of viruses. And if you don't know, the immune system has like a bacteria or something like that for each and every virus or like disease that it knows. So every time that disease tries to infiltrate your system, your body, or your software, your program, your system, your website, whatever this case may be, you already know because you used a bank of viruses. So you immediately just say, get out of here, swat it away like a fly, and it has no effect. But what is effective are the newer, more sophisticated viruses that your system, your programs don't detect, don't know, and so they go in undetected, and the system accepts something that it shouldn't. And this could be your fault as a cybersecurity analyst. You probably programmed something, you needed to update something, or maybe there was like a little error in your code, or this could just be a natural error, because programs, systems, all we can do as humans is try our very, very best to keep things as updated as possible. And all we're doing is just leveling with the hackers. The hackers get better, we get better. We get better, the hackers get better. So there's going to be a breach. Somebody is going to have a breach. The thing is, what are you going to do once that breach happens? For example, in the Capital One breach, a misconfigured cloud firewall allowed the access, right? So in this case, it was the issue of the people who build the program. They just they made oopsies and they paid for that oopsies. And this is why it is very, very important. Capital One deals with credit cards and things of that nature, so they would have gotten in trouble with the GLBA, which is one of the major laws that comes with cybersecurity. And if you want to know more about the 5 major laws, I made a video about that right here, or right here, one of them. Click it, watch it, learn, and then come back to this video. Back to law. Here we would have shared responsibility models that were misunderstood. We had security assumptions that were not documented. And then, of course, our compliance didn't meet our security demands, which, for the company, lots of money when you let a breach happen like this. CISA reports consistently show misconfiguration as a leading breach factor. So come on, organizations, come on, companies, organize your configurations and make sure they're updated and make sure that the hackers don't get in. And you know what? This is another reason why cybersecurity analysis and other cybersecurity jobs are in high demand, because these organizations don't know what they're doing. So as a future cyber attorney, I know that I need to get educated. This is why I make these videos, because it allows me to make my research and practice speaking to you guys and giving information to people, because as a cyber attorney, that's what I'm going to be doing. But also, I have to read books. So this book right here is the book that I got for Christmas, the book that I asked for, and it actually had a situation in here that I want to tell you guys because it's related to this. And basically what happened, there was a company, and the company had a breach, right? The hackers got very personal, sensitive information, and they when the government tried to like say, hey, this is a violation, they refuted it. They said, this is not a violation, because they basically tried to argue that the laws around cybersecurity are does not branch out to the violation that would apply to them. So technically, since there's no law against whatever they did, they shouldn't be held liable for whatever happened, or it should be handled in a different way. But of course, the government shut that down, and they said, no. I'm pretty sure this happened in like the Supreme Court. After reviewing the FTC's data security guidance and informant actions, we review the laws of 50 states and the District of Columbia that require companies to notify individuals, regulators, and credit bureaus after certain types of personal information are disclosed in a data breach. These laws are fairly complex, and the notification requirements vary by state. Failure to comply with the requirements in each of these states could lead to a significant regulatory penalty, and in some cases, private lawsuits. This book is so big. I passed it, so I'm not even sure like where it even was. But you're just gonna have to take my word for it. I don't remember the name of the business, but just know that's what happened. And that's basically what would happen to these businesses if they don't comply, because the laws are there, trust. And actually, I can low-key agree with the company. I definitely do believe that the company needs to be held accountable, but it is true that cybersecurity is fairly new, and we haven't really gotten across getting the laws to be effective enough in a way. But we all know what shouldn't happen, right? We all know what the law is trying to enforce. Okay, so you can get tick for tack with it, you know what I'm saying? But we all know that you're just not supposed to let information like that get taken by some random person or some random company. It's just not fair, and it is definitely a violation that needs to be taken care of, and the company should be held responsible for that. Tangent, because there was also another situation where people were talking about cookies, right? How the laws around cookies and cookie tracking was kind of ambiguous, and companies were using that to their advantage. How there are rules to accepting cookies, and how that, because it's essentially selling a person's personal data. It's tracking where you're going throughout the internet and selling it to other companies and other businesses that will benefit from those data for maybe marketing purposes or whatnot. And that's not really fair to the user if they don't get a say in that. And that's why you always have that pop-up box, hey, do you accept cookies? But that's why it's different from site to site. Most sites are gonna say, hey, do you accept these cookies? Accept, decline. But other sites not really gonna have the decline very visible. Maybe they will try to like not even ask you in the first place or even let you know. So yeah, it gets crazy. We need better laws, but of course that's only gonna happen as time proceeds. But this brings me to topic number 3, expansion and resistance. The core question here is, why doesn't one failure stay contained? Which I kind of answered already. Here is where the attackers get privilege escalation, lateral movement, persistence. If you're into cybersecurity, you know that a big part of cybersecurity is coding and understanding code, and not, it doesn't even have to be like a specific like language, but just in general, being able to understand the code of a computer and how websites and systems work, right? Because those are all built on code. You need to be able to read movement through code, because computers, anything digital goes back to binary, right? And it's just nice and jazzed up for the end user so that it's easier for them to use, and it's easy on the eyes, and they don't have to worry about all the back end code and all that stuff, right? It's very confusing, and honestly, they just don't need to know that information. But for anybody who is digging into cybersecurity, you know that we work with Windows or Linux a lot, and a lot of that is just moving through dictionaries, understanding permissions, and things of that nature. So lateral movement essentially means that this person is going from a low privilege to a high privilege, or a basic public file that anyone can see to a very highly secured file that no one is supposed to see but authorized people, right? And that takes us to the AAA, which is what am I talking about? That takes us to CIA, confidentiality, integrity, and authentication or authorization, right? Those are the three main pillars when it comes to cybersecurity regarding privilege escalation. How to manage privilege escalation, how to make sure that doesn't happen when someone is trying to do it, right? First, you have confidentiality, then you have, of course, integrity, and then, of course, the last one is authorized authentication. Are you who you say you are? Okay, so let's, obviously, once you have privilege, you have access, and once you have access, you have some kind of control, and from there, you do whatever you want. And of course, like I said, there are many different types of malware, so there are also many different types of reasons why somebody would want to gain access to something they are otherwise not supposed to. And that could be for ransomware. For example, ransomware is to simply gain access and then hold on to that access and ask the company or the person for money so that they can regain their access, basically, right? So they didn't really want to do anything with that information. They just wanted to show you that, hey, I'm in control, and now you have to pay me money if you want to get back in control, right? So yeah, kind of crazy, right? But I'm telling you, hackers, they go crazy sometimes. For example, in multiple healthcare breaches, attackers remain inside networks for months. They weren't even hidden. It was just because no one was looking. So it's very common for people in cybersecurity to kind of, I would say, turn a blind eye to their work, especially if they're looking at the system every day. If everything looks about the same, it's very easy for them to be like, yeah, nobody's trying to break in today, or I've already gotten the people who were trying to break in. You know what I'm saying? So it's sometimes when a hacker gets in, they kind of just linger because, first of all, they're trying to get as much information as they can. Second of all, if they do too much too quickly, they risk getting detected, and that would blow their whole entire thing, right? The person, the blue teamer would be like, what are you? Figure out who you are, destroy you, and then build their system to make sure that you don't get access again. And then you're going to have to go back and build a better, more sophisticated program, which also can take months, years. Yeah. Hey, both teams are putting in a lot of work. You got to respect it at the very least. For example, MITRE ATT&CK maps these behaviors precisely, and yet many organizations do not operationalize it. Okay, and honestly, yeah, there's a lot of known malware on the computers and systems already. And if you want, you can find, there's a site, I'm pretty sure MITRE ATT&CK has it. And it has a whole list of all of the kinds of malwares and things of that nature that companies can use to make sure that their programs, their systems, their websites don't get taken over or infiltrated by these rookie, I wouldn't even say rookie, because some of them are quite sophisticated, but that's like getting sick from a flu that you've already gotten sick from before, and it's the same flu. It's not like a variation of it. What is your body doing? Come on now, your body should have learned from the first time to make sure this never happens again. You know what I'm saying? I hope you know what I'm saying. Okay, and then of course, concept number 4, which is impact. The hacker got in. Now they just do whatever they want to do, to be honest. You just got to make sure they don't get in, because once they get in and they reach their end goal, it's wraps for you, and you better start contacting your lawyers to make sure that everything goes smoothly from point on, because you're cooked. Actually, yeah. But anyway, obviously there is a pattern and there is a system for how hackers get into it. We'll get into systems. And of course, a lot of it comes down to the skillfulness of a hacker, because although there are some companies who are just ignorant or neglect their defenses, most companies, especially the ones that matter, understand this and they take very heavily safety precautions. So if you're trying to hack big companies like Google, or I don't know, credit companies like, what's a credit company? I don't know. Any of those big guys, good luck. And you have to be incredibly intelligent to build a software sophisticated enough to get by their defenses, because oh boy, are they defended. But yeah, that's not what I'm here for. I'm not trying to encourage you to be a hacker or be a black hat hacker. If anything, I'm encouraging you to learn more about being a white hat hacker. And maybe if you want to try hacking yourself, be a little bit of a gray hat hacker. But make sure you don't get yourself into any legal trouble. But of course, once all the hacking has been done and maybe the business failed at protecting themselves, they are going to have to call people like me, or future me, cyber law attorneys and lawyers to help make sure that they proceed with the process legally and smoothly, and that everything goes well from there on. But it is up to the cybersecurity people who are meant to be monitoring the system and defending the system to ensure that doesn't even happen. But like I said, it's going to happen, and we're humans, so of course not all the time are we going to be able to stop these things from happening. But of course, that's why I'm here, and that's why I'm studying to become a cyber law attorney, to make sure that when everything goes to hell, you guys got me, and I know what I'm doing, and I'll make sure everything goes well. But that is it for today's video, how hacking works. If you guys want me to go into a deeper dive, or maybe into, because there's so much information that I want to talk to you guys about, and I will actually. So if you're interested, make sure to subscribe, and I will see you all